Thanks, everyone. Today I have 3/4 of our top 10 bots team from the Boss of the SOC competition at Splunk.conf 2024. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk about what the Boss of the SOC competition is. It's commonly referred to as bots, Boss of the SOC, nice and easy there. But bots is a capture the flag kind of a game. The team of four is trying to defend a fake company. It's Frothy Brewing Company, a name that Splunk has used for multiple years for the competition. So you're trying to be the blue team for Frothy, trying to defend against some nefarious attacks. So Splunk brings in log entries that simulate a number of potential real-world attacks, and you're there to use Splunk's tools and capabilities to triage and respond to the incidents and to hunt for threat activity. So as a top 10 team from bots this year, let me just start off by asking Alan. Alan, what are you allowed to bring with in terms of like Deepwatch capabilities and Deepwatch technologies to help you with the bots activity? Or are you really just kind of stuck with a clean interface to Splunk and whatever you can pack between your two ears?
So you can bring outside tools on your laptop, and you can bring outside Splunk queries, things like that. In fact, you will need outside tools for some of the questions. Not all the questions, not all the answers are actually in Splunk itself. Sometimes you have to take data from there and then use an outside tool to gather information that wasn't necessarily available in the logs itself. But you can't really install like Splunk apps or anything like that. You're kind of limited to what they give you on the Splunk instance or their other products that they're having you work through. But you definitely have to bring a lot of knowledge as well.
So Tyler, Alan mentioned some outside tools. Give me an example of what he might have been referring to there.
Yeah, I mean, like last year, one of the challenges that we faced was it took us a long time to realize that we could actually go to, like a GitHub repo and actually look at the logs in a GitHub repo. Instead, we're trying to look at it, within Splunk logs, which are, fantastic to work with, but not as great as just going to the repo itself and trying to identify the answer.
Awesome. Okay. Kyle, Deepwatch has participated for a while. Can you give us a quick history on Deepwatch's bots participation over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been having employees at Deepwatch go to the bots competition since as early as 2019. But back in 2021 is when we formed the first official Deepwatch BOTS team, which placed in top 10. And then for every year after, we placed in top 10 since 2021, sending a Deepwatch official team to Boss of the SOC to compete.
Kyle, has the team been the same group every time, or have we had a bunch of different folks participate over the years?
So we've sent one or two teams, and we've had different people cycle out between the teams, just based on the changes in the cybersecurity environment, what we think some of the specialties might be, the availability of members, et cetera. It's since 2021 onwards, it's been in person only in Las Vegas, which does work, as a fully remote company here at Deepwatch, it does kind of limit some people who are able to travel at that time. So we have cycled through people, but there has been some people who've stayed the same throughout there as well.
So you guys aren't some purpose-built dream team of bots experts. You're actually, frankly, folks from the pool of our great experts here at Deepwatch.
Yeah, absolutely. The people who are training analysts in cybersecurity, experts, building detections, refining detections, investigating IR work. It's really just a whole breadth of Deepwatch employees, not some custom-built, lab-grown, competition folks.
So Kyle, as somebody who's been on more than one of these teams, what would you say it takes to be a successful team at a bots competition?
So communication is definitely a big portion of it, understanding where people's strengths and weaknesses are and where to put people in specific modules. So specifically this year, there were 8 modules in Boss of the SOC. That's a lot of modules. And each of them widely range in terms of different specialties. And so assigning individuals to specific specialties allows you to, of course, accomplish it quickly, and also knowing what you're going into. So as my role in the organization, over the SOC, The SOC modules where I succeed at. That's probably my best one, right? SOAR configuration, probably not my best one, right? You might not want to throw me on building, SOAR Phantom workbooks. It's not really my specialty, right? I could probably do it, probably work through it, but it might take me a little bit more time. So understanding who's on your team and kind of where their strong suits are and putting them in the right spot is definitely one portion of it that allows you to succeed. And then it's a time-based competition. So the faster that you can knock things out, the better. And then knowing when you're stuck on a question and to have someone come over. Because there's 8 modules and there's 4 of us, that means each one of us approximately has to take 2. We don't want to shoulder surf over each other and waste time doing that. But also spending so much time on a question when Alan can come over there and get a fresh pair of eyes on and go, Kyle, it's obviously this one. I'm like, oh, of course it was. Thank you, Alan. I was completely blindsided by that. Knowing that is also a really important part of succeeding at this competition, or really any cybersecurity competition. You can't do everything alone, and you got to know when to rely on your teammates.
Speaking of relying on your teammates, Tyler or Alan, anything you want to add to that answer?
I would just echo, exactly what Kyle said. Communication's key. Knowing when to ask for help. That's good at life advice. You can't do everything on your own. So just, knowing when to reach out and ask for help.
All right. Tyler, let me continue on with you there. How would you say bots tests your Splunk capabilities? How does it actually really test what you know how to do within Splunk?
Yeah, I think one of the fun things about bots is, they do trial and test out some of their new tools and capabilities. So while you do have the typical, working in Splunk and searching in Splunk, you do get access to, Splunk Phantom, and you do get access to some of their other product offerings. So like this year, they, had Attack Analyzer, so we could, submit samples and see what those reports would look like. Plus they had their observability tool last year. They brought it back for this year as well. So you get to see access and, play around with tools that you don't normally get to play with. So I think if you're, a typical analyst and you're working in, Splunk ES, you're set for the traditional ES portions. But I think it's really going to test your abilities to, kind of just figure things out to understand the questions and what they're asking. It's not always as difficult as you make it out to be.
Thank you. Alan, anything you want to add to that at all? Or Kyle?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what you said. Definitely, they introduced tools that you may not have seen before because they're brand new. So this year they did that, and we really had to start getting into it and looking at some of these new tools that they have and really investigating things. Also provides a great learning experience as well because of that.
One advantage of Splunk tools is that over the years, they've really become very, it's a user-friendly. One of the portions that I had, of course, the analysis portion, but I also had Attack Analyzer. I have never used Attack Analyzer. So as I'm competing live in the competition, up next to me, I have the docs from Splunk as if we're going through them and working it collaboratively. And working through what would generally be the analysis pipeline in Attack Analyzer felt really natural, right? So one advantage there for sure was like, okay, well, this is the path, and this is the sandbox, and this is the steps it took. And, it felt like, although I've never used the tool before, I feel like right now I could jump in there and use it now over one session in bots. Right.
I think the other neat thing too that you'll see is, as these bots competitions evolve, you really get to see all these tools, and what they look like when they're meshed together really well. So it's not just, one tool and then another, disparate tool over here. You actually get to see the full life cycle of Splunk's ecosystem, which is really neat.
So with that, Tyler, let me ask you, and I'm going to ask all 3 of you to comment on this next one. How does your experience at Deepwatch enable you to achieve that top 10 finish at bots? And Tyler, do me a favor as you're answering it. Give us a quick understanding of what your day-to-day at Deepwatch is. What do you do at Deepwatch? And then help us understand how that sets you up for success.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I always consider myself an analyst. I don't think it matters, where you end up in your career. I think you're always an analyst at heart, at least in the cybersecurity space. So I consider myself an analyst. My day-to-day job is, building out detections, fine-tuning our detections. So it's really neat to see, hey, what are we seeing, as part of these bots competitions? How are they going about and, trying to bypass techniques and detection capabilities? What should I be looking out for when I'm building my detections to enable the analysts to do their jobs as effectively as possible?
All right, reverse alphabetical order. Kyle.
Yep. So as director of SOC operations, I would also consider myself to be an analyst at heart, right? It is definitely a core competency of mine to make sure that the analysts underneath me are able to perform analysis, quick, effective, and accurate. And that's the kind of skill set that's brought to this competition that allows us to hit top 10. Speed is a big factor in this, and the ability to walk through the yes analysis section and quickly identify this host, and here's the alerts that fired for this host, the notables, and pivoting each one and find these is a huge portion of that. And then being able to effectively search in Splunk. Splunk environments have lots of logs in them, and you have to be able to craft effective searches to find those logs, even in the day-to-day here at Deepwatch, right? When time is a factor, and the same thing in the competition where time is a factor. If you just do index equals star in the bots competition, you're going to be sitting there for a while all that CloudTrail data logs. You just sit there and wait. You're going to have to know what you're looking for. Just simply throwing what you considered an IOC to be into the environment and waiting and hoping it comes back, you are 10,000 points behind the rest of the people who knew exactly where they were going to look in the exact index, which is going to be main usually in the bots competition, and then the exact source type, and then what you're looking for. So that's something that happens here that the analysts every day have to deal with, right? Which is knowing where to look for logs and what pivots and correlates with what, and what tools, this is a big one, what tools and technologies do what. Because when you're looking at logs, you don't know what those are. What is, let's say, for example, like Cisco ASA, right? When you see it as a source type, if you don't know what that is inherently, you have to go Google that. That's time spent where Deepwatch analysts who deal with technology and tools day in and day out can quickly go and look in a BOTS the SOC competition and go, I know what all those source types are. I know what they do. I need to look inside this one. It's a quick and easy pivot. So those are a few things that the day-to-day Deepwatch brings over to the skill set here.
And Alan, round us out for this question.
Yeah, so I'm a detection platform architect here at Deepwatch, and I spend a lot of time investigating new ways to enhance our detection platform. And so I spend a lot of time looking at tools that Splunk provides that can help us leverage our detection platform. So it's really great when you go into bots and you start seeing some of these tools that you may have looked at before and really starting to need to understand them, as well as what Kyle mentioned and Tyler mentioned. You need to know how to search things. It's really important in Splunk, knowing the right searches. They also limit you on certain searches. They don't want you doing really inefficient searches because lots of people are using these environments. So you have to do searches that are efficient, but also find the answer you need fast. And so that's some of the stuff that I've learned, working at Deepwatch.
So Alan, you don't do your search to get the information you need and then run something that's just going to tie up the CPU to keep everybody else from getting their work done? That's not allowed?
No, I mean, that might be a good idea, but no, that's not something I was able to do at the competition.
Always thinking, guys, always thinking. All right, Alan, let's stick with you. How does bots compare to the work you do every day at Deepwatch?
So, yeah, I mean, you have to look at a lot of logs in bots. They provide a lot of data. They provide a lot of data across multiple platforms. And that's something I do a lot. I'm constantly looking at data that we have from our detections and from our detection platform to try to understand things as well as investigate things. And when you start looking at some of the other tools like Attack Analyzer or SOAR, and you really have to dig into what these playbooks are doing, what they're grabbing, and also some of the code that is being executed on the SOAR platform. As an example, during this bots competition, I worked on the SOAR platform, and they had me dig into some of the Python code that they have and change things a little bit to see what happens when I do it. And so I really had to, take some of my day-to-day knowledge that, I gathered at Deepwatch and really use that in this, in bots.
Awesome. Tyler, how about you next?
Yeah, I think working on our detections and building out our detections, it provides a unique experience and opportunity. So when I'm building out detections, for Deepwatch, I'm trying to make effective searches that, aren't going to be, CPU intensive on our customer search heads. And they provide the analysts exactly what they need to know. So I take some of that knowledge and experience when I'm working, in a bots competition to make sure that I'm searching effectively, and providing the answers as quickly and effectively as possible.
And Kyle, last thoughts on how bots compares to what you do every day at Deepwatch?
So I think one thing I do every day at Deepwatch is I try to optimize the analyst experience to make that, the time to value as short as possible, right? So how fast can analysts get information they need and then make a concise decision on that to be able to give value to customers, right? So that's one of the big pieces. And that directly relates to bots, because every year the four of us are going to sit back down and talk about how we're going to optimize this experience to make the next year even more effective, right? As soon as we were done with the competition, I was probably up till 3 o'clock in the morning, just going over everything that we could have done as a hyper efficiency change. And when we go back into it for the next year, it'll be like that, right? So, hey, we did this, but you could do this more effectively if you search for this. Or we could have found this if we would have went this direction instead of that. And then we're also able to take those lessons learned from bots and take them directly into Deepwatch to just have a better experience for our customers and the analysts. There was an entire section this year, specifically just on cloud computing logs, an entire section. A lot of things were learned from that section, from one single instance of a ton of cloud computing logs that we can then take and use to enrich the experience for Deepwatch analysts as a whole, and detections and everything else, because of what we've learned just from having to sift through, what seemed like 100,000 plus CloudTrail logs and try to get to it as effectively as possible. So it's definitely a direct one-for-one correlation there.
All right. Kyle, let me stick with you for this next question. What tips or tricks would you share with others who want to participate in bots maybe next year?
The bots min-maxing. Yes, of course. So we've mentioned it several times throughout this entire, this discussion here. Points in time, so, one for one. That's a really big piece. The faster you answer questions, the faster you get points. In Boss of the SOC, the longer it takes you, every minute, the questions go down by a percentage of their value. So the quicker you're able to score points, the quicker you get the full value for points. The second piece is not being scared of using hints or waiting for hints. I will also give you a hint here. The first hint that they give you are always pretty rough. They're very surface level. I counted a few this year alone where the first hint was, did you try to Google that as the hint? Which can sometimes be frustrating, especially if you're waiting for the hint to get released, and then it gets released and the release is, did you try Googling it? And although that is a poor hint sometimes, it's also a very good hint other times. So there was one section on this that Tyler and I worked on together, which involved using and this is the Wayback Machine, to go back and look at a website. And we used the Wayback Machine and we were trying to find it here. We ended up just Googling it, and it came up with the exact Wayback Machine URI that we were looking for to go right in there and find the answer. So we were actually able to do that. Another example of a tool that we used outside of Splunk that helped us kind of find an answer there. So that's a second big one. The third one, of course, is assigning the right modules to people you think will be most successful in those, but also not underestimating the difficulty of some of those sections. The ES section historically has been very easy. This year was not easy. I thought this year the ES section was exceptionally difficult. Now, it could be because I'm aging. It could be because perhaps I'm a little bit out of touch. But I did think that it was slightly more difficult this year than past years. And then don't overcomplicate the answer. Cybersecurity isn't always that complicated. A lot of times, and we all, we should know this, attackers use the path of least resistance often in order to maneuver. And oftentimes those are the easiest answers as well. There's several times I can hear people, because we're all in one ballroom essentially. You can hear people getting really stuck on things and you're like, oh, you're almost right there. Like you're overlooking the answer often. A lot of times it's right in front of you. At Splunk, Boss of the SOC competitions, it is more likely that the answer is going to be a few letters long than it is going to be 10 or 100 letters long of an executable, right? So simple was generally better from this perspective. So those are some solid tips. And then just studying on free Bots of the SOC information is a great way to get started if you've never done it before. And everyone should do a Boss the SOC competition. Even if you don't think that you're going to win, you shouldn't go in there to win. You should go in there to experience. We certainly didn't go in our times thinking we were going to place top 10. We were going in there because we wanted to experience what Boss the SOC was like. And then over the years, optimize that and start to get hyper competitive. But everyone should have an opportunity to try and compete in this, because it's just really eye-opening to what it looks like to walk through an entire attack life chain or life cycle within Splunk.
I think one of the things you could do there was just have fun. It's a great learning opportunity. Lots to gain from it. So just have fun. Like Kyle said, don't go in it expecting to win. We range all over the top 10 for a while. And it's not until probably the last 30, 45 minutes that you start seeing where everybody shakes out.
Those hints, the hints, they're frustrating. They're fun, but they're frustrating.
Alan, any last tips to add from you, sir?
Read the questions. Read them closely. They are not, I think we may have mentioned this before, but they are not multiple choice questions. And they will provide you the type of answer that they want. If they say it's going to be a number, they will provide you the rounding places that they want that number to be rounded to. So, make sure you read the questions carefully. You could easily lose points if you just fill in an answer, but, don't put the answer the way they want it. Also, as Kyle...
Yes, the times.
Yeah,
Yes.
As Kyle mentioned, definitely don't feel like you have to go here to compete at bots. I met numerous first-time analysts there at the bots competition who were actually just there to learn. And afterwards, they may not have gotten the best score, but they got a lot of information out of that, a lot of great experience that they could definitely use in future bots competitions as well as in their career as analysts.
Well, Gene, thank you very much for spending some time recording this with me. I really do appreciate it. Congratulations on 3 top 10s in a row. That's fantastic. And for anybody who's interested, we really do recommend participating in a bots competition. I know Splunk does them in other regions of the world too, but here in the US, always great to see you at .conf and see you participating, competing, or just learning in a bots competition at .conf in Vegas. So thanks all for the time today. Appreciate it. Appreciate the discussion.